All right, and thank you everyone. And once again, just a brief announcement for those on YouTube. If the stream cuts out on you, please dial the conference bridge. I put the number in the description page on YouTube. We're having some internet problems here today. The title of the talk today, what we're talking about, is Only the Unreal Dissolves. Only the Unreal Dissolves. And of course, that title in itself kind of raises some questions for us, you know. What is real and what is unreal? And what do we mean by dissolve? Why would we want to dissolve it? Is there a reason? Is it important? And what is left when the unreal dissolves? What is left? What is there? Is there nothing? Or is there everything? In Buddhism, they talk about emptiness and nothingness. But it's not the emptiness and nothingness that we experience in the physical life. If we have a cardboard box and it's empty, there's nothing in there. That's the physical experience. The spiritual experience is that there's everything in there. These are the ideas we're going to toss around today. But more important than just listening to ideas and tossing them around, because that's good, that's a starting place. We want to go and experience. We want to experience these ideas. We want to experience what the ideas are pointing us toward, because the ideas in themselves are not real. They're just opinions. But they're pointing to something that is real. And so the word God is not the word. God is not the concept that comes into our mind when we hear the word God. So Emmett Fox tells us, if somebody tells you they don't believe in God, ask them what kind of God they don't believe in. Because it's very likely you don't believe in that kind of a God either. See, we do this in our society. We use the word God, you know. On our dollar bills it says, "In God we trust." And I was over attending a session at a courthouse in York County, South Carolina last week. They have these classes for citizens. You can go and they tell you all about the different county services, and this last one was in the courthouse. You know, in the courthouse, some of the slogans say, "In God we trust." You know. And some people think that that's great, and some people think that that's terrible. But what they're reacting to is their idea of what the word God means. See, God is not the word, and God is not our idea of the word. It's only our opinion. Dr. Holmes tells us that our religion constitutes our opinion of God. That's it. Now, I realize there's lots more that people would argue or assert that constitutes religion. There's dogma, there's creed, there's buildings, there's robes, there's ceremonies, there's rituals, there's sacraments, there's all these other things that fall within people's concept, people's idea of what a religion might be. But if we step back far enough and look at it, those ideas all support their opinion of God, what God is. So we want to try to separate this notion. We want to try to separate the idea from the thing. We want to try to separate that which is real from that which is unreal. So if we look at something more tangible than God. God is an abstract concept. Joseph Campbell says that the word God is a metaphor for everything that transcends, for that which transcends, back up. God is a metaphor for that which transcends every known limitation of the human mind. The human mind knows beginning and end, and God has no beginning or God has no end. The human mind knows that there's a limit to what we can do and what we can know, and yet the divine mind knows all and can do all. See, the word God is a metaphor for that which transcends our limitations. That is our idea. That is our concept of God, and it's pretty abstract. It's pretty hard for us to get. It's pretty hard for us to get our mind around that, which by definition we can't get our mind around. So we'll go to something more tangible. We'll go to a rock. Now, is a rock real? You say, yes, a rock is real. It's matter. It's atoms. It's protons. It's neutrons. It's electrons, and at the quantum level, it's subatomic particles. The rock is real in that regard. It is, and it just is. It's just a rock. It's nothing more, nothing less, just a rock. But then there's the concept of the rock. There's the concept. When you and I look at the rock, we think of two different things. It's a rock, we might agree on that. But after that, and even with that, we label it, and the word may have different meanings to us. So a child might look at the rock and say, ooh, I can put that in my slingshot. A rock is something that you shoot off in your slingshot and you have fun knocking down tin cans. Somebody else might look at the rock and say, ooh, I can use that to build a wall. Somebody else might look at it and say, ooh, I can grind that up into gravel and I can put it in my driveway. Somebody else might say, well, maybe I can chop it open. Maybe there's a diamond or some gold in there, you know. Still somebody else might look at it and say, wow, maybe that's part of an asteroid. Maybe it came from outer space, or is it lava, or is it granite? And they start to analyze it and weigh it. And what we want to understand is that all of that mental activity that takes place is not the rock. Those are our opinions about a rock. Those are our thoughts and our ideas about the rock. Some people might think rocks are good, and some people might think rocks are bad. You know, somebody ever hit you with a rock, you might think rocks are bad. You know, if you ever used a rock to get yourself out of a tough situation, you might think rocks are good. You know, all those are concepts. All of those ideas, none of those are real. None of those are the rock. What we have to try to grasp, what we have to try to understand is that if we wish to experience the rock as it is, we have to dissolve the opinions. We have to let the unreal dissolve. And once we let that dissolve, once we get it out of the way, then that which is already there, that which is the rock, can be experienced. So if you can kind of take that little idea, take that little story with you as we go through the day, as you go through the week, that's the essence of what we're talking about. See, only the unreal dissolves, but that which is remains. Many years ago, I was watching an interview on TV, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it's a very powerful story, I think. It's worth repeating. And they were interviewing Grace Slick, who was the lead singer, or one of the lead singers of Jefferson Airplane. For those of you who are old enough to remember Woodstock, she actually appeared at Woodstock. Had many hits in the late 60s and early 70s. And this interview was conducted later in life. It might have been the 80s or even the early 90s. And the person that was interviewing Grace Slick was talking to her about her addiction to alcohol, her recovery. And Grace Slick was talking about that. And they asked her, he said, well, did you ever backslide? Did you ever have a relapse? Did you stop drinking and go back to drinking? And she says, oh yeah. She said, I did. She said, I would sober up and I would stay sober for a while and then I would fall right on my butt and I would start drinking again. And she said, I came to understand why. I came to understand why I did that. And once I was able to understand it, then I never had to go and repeat that again. So the interview, natural follow-up question was, well, what did you learn? What did you discover? And she says, I realized that I knew who I was. I was familiar with who I was when I was drinking. She said, I did not have a clue who I was when I was sober. She could not identify with, she could not relate to this concept of sobriety. She was familiar with the concept of drinking and getting drunk. She knew what that felt like. She had this mental concept of it. But it scared her to death, she said. She was just terrified of what it would be like to be sober forever. I thought, wow. Isn't that powerful? Isn't that powerful that this mental image that she had of herself was so powerful. She so identified with it. That was her. That was her. The way that I understood the interview, she was saying that was me. I knew who that was. And I would rather be with that person that I knew who I was, even though that person was a drunk, than to be with someone I didn't know who was sober. To be someone I didn't know who was sober. And I said, wow. Because you see, either way, her idea of who she was simply an idea, simply a concept. But we all have these ideas, you see, and we all identify with them, and we all believe that the ideas are real and that they are the way that they are. You have an opinion of me. Some know me just through watching videos, some through hearing me on the conference calls, some have actually been into church and attended Sunday services and classes and things like that. And you have an idea of who I am. But each and every one who has an idea of who I am has a different idea of who I am. Depending upon what we may have talked about, depending upon our interactions in class, depending upon an aha moment that you may have had listening to a talk, it means something different to everybody. So it's obvious that I am none of those individual ideas. But the other thing to keep in mind is I too have my idea of who I am. I too have an opinion of myself, an identity, something that I associate with. And I say, oh, that's me. But just as I am not anyone else's opinion of who I am, neither am I my own opinion of who I am. And that's very powerful, because none of us are who we think we are. Who we think we are is only a concept, only an opinion. And it is unreal. It is unreal. I'll give you another example. You get up in the morning and you go stand in front of the mirror and you start grooming yourself to get ready for the day. Now, is the mirror real? Yes, it's a piece of glass and it's got some kind of silvery paint on the back and then black paint over that. And because it does, optically it reflects whatever's in front of it. The mirror is real. Now, is the physical body standing in front of the mirror real? Yes, the physical body standing in front of the mirror is real. It is composed of atoms just like the rock. It is there. But is the reflection in the mirror real? And it's not real. It is not real. It is not an entity. It's not. It can't move. It can't think. It can't do things on itself. It is only an appearance. It is only an appearance. So when I look in the mirror and I look at myself, I'm not looking at myself. I'm looking at a reflection. And even if I put my hand out in front of me and I look directly at my hand, I'm not seeing my hand. I'm seeing the mental image, the concept of a hand. I'm seeing all of the judgments and all of the things that I have associated with that hand. You know, if I've ever heard it, it might think of pain. You know, if I think of learning how to play the guitar, you know, I might think of music. But my hand is not pain. My hand is not music. It's just the concept of hand is associated with those things. So the reason that I mention this, the reason it is so important is that which we call our spiritual growth is really becoming self-aware. In some Eastern philosophies, they call it self-realization, capital S, capital R, self-realization. And Dr. Holmes, in some of his works, not so much in the textbook, but in some of his other works, he actually quotes from a book by Sri Aurobindo, Aribundo, and I believe it's called Self-Realization. It's available in its entirety on the internet now. Now the S is with a capital, not a little s. The I, that I think that I am S, but the S, the big S, the God S. Right? When we capitalize words that shouldn't be capitalized, usually we're referring to them as some aspect of God, like love or peace or unity or wholeness or joy. We put capitals in front of those, and it means that we're talking about God as joy or God as love. Self. We're talking about the self with a capital S. We're talking about realizing the presence of God within. So our growth then, our spiritual growth, is a self-awareness or a self-realization, and as Dr. Holmes tells us, it is persistently and painstakingly removing everything from our consciousness that believes in separation, that believes that there's a distance between God and us. What we are doing is we are dissolving the unreal. We are letting go of the false ideas. So let me give you another example, and you may want to do some research on this on your own. And I've mentioned it in the past, but I'll mention it again because it too is a very valuable tool, very valuable thing to learn. In ancient Tibet, and I guess it still exists today in Tibet, there is a spiritual teaching, and it's called the Yoga of Dreams and Sleep. It has a Tibetan name, but in English the best we can come up with is the Yoga of Dreams and Sleep. In our society we call it lucid dreaming. And what that means is being asleep and dreaming, but recognizing that you are asleep and that what is occurring is a dream. So there's a book on the Internet Archive, and it's called The Yoga of Dreams and Sleep, and it's there in its entirety if you want to go and read it. And the reason that the Tibetans put such importance on this spiritual practice is this. Where are you? Who are you? These are kind of the fundamental questions of life, right? Now, most of us during the day, we identify with our thoughts. We identify with our mental constructs. But is that who we are? Or is that just an idea that we have formed? Who is the one who formed the idea? Who is the one who is aware of the idea? Deeper question. So now we take this into our nighttime. Now, as we lay down to go to sleep, we tend to have certain little rituals that we perform that help us get ready for sleep. We wash our face, we brush our teeth, we put our pajamas on, whatever it is that we tend to do. And we may lay down into a certain position. We have lay on the left side, lay on the right side, lay on your back, do different things. All of which is kind of preconditioned to your body to say, now it's bedtime, now I'm going to sleep, During this process, we tend to pass through what they call the hypnagogic state, which means that we're having a dream and we're looking at the dream and we're aware that it's a dream, but we're not totally engaged in the dream. We don't act and react as if it were real. We just see like daydreams floating before our mind. And then eventually we drift off into dreamless sleep. Now, in dreamless sleep, where are you? Who are you? The body is asleep. The brain has pretty much shut down. There are no ideas. There's nothing going on. Who are you? Where are you? Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Well, what happens when we go into dreamless sleep and we're not thinking? Does that mean we are not? Where am I? Who am I? Now, it's obvious that there's something still there. Right? There's a consciousness still there. You and I largely are unaware of it. We are in dreamless sleep. We are in fact unconscious. We are not lucid. We are not aware that we are. But yet, if there's a noise, if somebody rings the bell, if the phone rings or something like that, somehow we come out of that sleep, even if we're in dreamless sleep. And then a dream arises. Then the brain starts to become active and a dream arises. And there's this whole other world and there's this whole other story that's going on. And we identify with it. We are there. We are in it. If something is chasing us, our heart beats faster, We run. We might wake up and the blankets are all in a big knot around our leg because we were running in our sleep. We cannot separate, normally, we cannot separate the illusion of the dream from who we are or where we are. We think it is real. We engage in it as if it was real. We act as if it was real. It's got to be to me, it's got to be one of the most fascinating experiments in human life. Who are all of these people in my dream? Who put them there? Why are they there? Did I create them? Well, if I didn't, who did? Just a bunch of people walking around. Astral projection. They just pop into your dreams when you're asleep. Think about this. So we have this elaborate story that we have created, in color, with sound, with motion. But it's an illusion. It's not real. But we are trapped in it as if we are real. If we dream that we're thirsty and then dream that we're taking a cold drink, the thirst goes away. Yet nothing's changed in our physical bodies, you see. So the idea then of the Tibetan spiritual practice is that through spiritual practice, we can become aware of the fact that we are asleep and we are dreaming. And through further spiritual practice, we can become aware of the fact that we are asleep and we are not yet dreaming. Dreamless sleep, the interval between dreams, the interval before the dream and between the dreams. And the Buddhists call that the clear light consciousness, just pure consciousness aware of itself. Now, where am I? Who am I? Am I the body that is sleeping on the bed? Am I the brain that has gone inactive? Am I even the consciousness? Is there even an I? That's the point. Is there even an I? Because the I that I identify with is gone. It is completely gone at that moment in time. This is kind of the place where the I that we thought we were no longer exists. And yet we're not afraid. See, we're not afraid. In our waking state, if we said, everything that you think you are is going to disappear, it's going to go away, we would be terrified. We go to sleep every night. It doesn't bother us a bit. Can't wait to get my head on the pillow. I'm out of here. Now, in the West, in our part of the world, for years, people said, well, that's not possible. You can't possibly become lucid in your dreams because it's kind of an oxymoron. When you're dreaming, your brain is shut down and you need your brain to be awake. And the Buddhist concept was, nevertheless, it exists. And scientists in the West started to study it. Stephen LaBarge out at Stanford out in California has a sleep laboratory and started to study it. And lo and behold, yes, they found that indeed this exists. Indeed, this can be documented. In fact, you can learn how to do it and you can replicate it. But here's what's interesting. Here's what we did in our society. Once we learned how to do that, people started to learn that I can be wide awake and lucid in my dreams. What they started to do is to manipulate the dreams. See? I said, well, if I'm asleep and I'm dreaming, I can have any experience I want. There's no limits. I can do whatever I want. I can go to Tahiti if I want to go to Tahiti. Dr. Patricia Garfield, who wrote many books about this subject, so when she first learned how to do it, she would go someplace with a fantastic lover, and she would use the time that she was asleep to have this fantasy. We might be able to try out any behavior that we've always wondered what it was like. And to go back to the story of Grace Slick, we might try to experience ourselves as being sober and see what that felt like, you see. Stop right there. In this scenario of a person who is asleep, who suddenly has become aware of the fact that what they're experiencing is really unreal, is an illusion, and it can be manipulated. Where are they? Where are they? Who are they? See, in the old consciousness, they were in a dream and they were an actor and they were being acted upon by other people who were not real people but illusions. And now in this new state, they are in a dream and they are being acted upon, but they are deciding how they're being acted upon. So if you put it in terms of a screenplay, can you imagine going to a theater or a movie and people are living the role as if that was really them? They so identify with the character in the movie that they think the character is real and that they are the character, kind of like Nurse Betty, They can't separate the illusion, the unreal, from the real. But then at some point they realize, hey, this is just a play and we're just acting and I can write whatever dialogue I want for this character. I can direct this character in this scene any way I want. I can change the scenery with a snap of a finger. I can move from the mountains to the coast. I can do all these things. But who is it who is doing all of those things? Who is it? So in Tibet, what they do is they say, well, yes, that's good, because in the dream-like experience, when you realize that it is a dream and you realize that you can do whatever you want, you can use that time for your spiritual growth. You can use that time to practice new behaviors. You can use that time to act in the highest good of all concerned. You can use that time to meditate. You can use that time to pray. And think about that. We all say, I don't have enough time for my spiritual practice. Well, you've got 8 hours a night that if you could learn how to become lucid, that you could use all of that time for your spiritual growth. And then in the Tibetan practice, when you're not dreaming, you just simply be. You simply be. You just simply are. That is the emptiness. That is the nothingness. But it is not empty and it is not nothing. It is the fullness, because what happens is we cannot experience that which is real because our vision is clouded by the unreal. St. Paul said we are looking through the glass darkly. And we have this mistaken concept that if we, the Grace Slick concept for the interview I was talking about, that if we somehow get rid of that which we know, there's nothing there. There's nothing left. And what we must come to realize is that there's everything there. There is everything left. But in order to experience that which is real, we have to allow the unreal to dissolve. Dr. Holmes gives us the example of coming into a room and the room is dark. Now we can stand there in the room, we can walk around in the dark, we can stub our toe and hit our shin on the table. We can do all kinds of things. We might be able to try to fix blame. Who left the room dark? Why did they pull all the curtains? Why did they leave the light turned out? Who did such a thing? We need to find that person. And none of that changes the situation. And all we have to do is turn the light switch on. And the instant we turn the light switch on, the darkness disappears. The darkness was not real. It was an experience. It was a condition. It was a condition of the obstruction of light. But the darkness didn't struggle. The darkness didn't put up a fight. It just dissolved. So that which is unreal in this example, the darkness, is dissolved by the action of the light. And what we are left with is that which is there. So when the room was completely pitch black, we didn't know what was there. It might have been completely empty. It might have been completely full. Unless we bump into something, we wouldn't know. But when the light comes on and the darkness is dissolved, that which is real is left. So what we must consider as we grow in our spiritual practice, in our self-realization, in our awareness of the presence of God, we must understand then that God is already here. It's not out there somewhere. Sometimes we get confused and think, I need to go out there and do something. I need to go out there and get something and bring it in here to me. There's nothing out there that we need to go get as much as there is something in here that we need to realize. So rather than spending all of our time and energy running out there to get another certificate or another degree or attend another workshop or seminar, we might want to consider that the most beneficial practice is going to be the practice of dissolving that which is unreal. In other words, let's not put more false concepts or more erroneous concepts or more illusions into our mind and entertain ourselves and distract ourselves with those. But let's eliminate those by dissolving those. The two approaches to spiritual growth. One is to just completely dissolve all the false ideas, and what you're left with is the truth. That's what we're talking about today. The other is that you work persistently and painstakingly, one project at a time or one desire at a time, and you change your consciousness that way. And I advocate both. You need to do both. If you're doing just one or the other, it'd probably be quicker if you did both. So what we come to realize as we go through life is that we must be willing to let go of everything that we know. We must be willing to let go of everything that we know through the intellect. Because quite frankly, everything that we know is probably wrong. It's just opinions. It might be our parents' opinion. It might be our clergy's opinions that were given to us by our teachers when we were little. Might be pop culture's opinion, things that we learned from our friends or from television, radio. All those things. But none of it is real. All of it is an illusion. All of it is an opinion. All of it is a concept. All of it is a way pointer to something else. So what we want to do is we want to try a couple techniques. We want to try a couple techniques that are specifically for the purpose of helping us to realize, without all the chatter of the monkey mind coming in and distracting us. So the first technique is feel. Feel, don't think. Feel. Feel it. Now, if I held up a rose, if I held up a rose to you, could you just feel its beauty? Could you just feel how perfect it is? Ernest Holmes had a single rose on the lectern when he spoke. He didn't like flowers on the stage. He wasn't a big fan of music associated with a talk because he didn't want people to get so caught up in the churchy atmosphere that they weren't taking in ideas and letting the ideas work in their consciousness. But he had one single rose on the lectern, and that reminded him of the perfection of life. And there's a teaching in Buddhism where the Buddha held up one flower, one single flower, never said a word, just held up a flower, and that was the entire sermon. Can you feel that perfection? See, what we tend to do in our society is somebody will hold up a rose, and the first thing we do is start to analyze it. Is it red? Is it yellow? Does it have any blemishes on it? What does it smell like? Where did it come from? Is it clean? Has it got any pesticides on it? And our mind is going off, creating the dream, creating the illusion, creating all of this drama. And we're missing the rose. I was reading some Osho this morning. He was talking about he was at a university one time, and he was talking, and there was a person there, a member of the staff who was with him, and this person was constantly chattering. I mean, I know that you've experienced that. You're with people, and if there's just a second of silence in a conversation, they just start to blurt out something, some random thing, just anything. It's like they can't stand being alone. They can't stand the silence just because they've got to say something. And Osho was with this person who was like that, and they went out on the balcony, and there was a beautiful sunset. I imagine, in my mind, the story I make up, it was out on the west coast someplace, and the ocean was there, and the sun was going down into the ocean, And this person was just chattering and chattering and chattering. And Osho said, "Isn't it a beautiful sunset?" That was all. "Isn't it a beautiful sunset?" And the person replied, "Well, yes, but it needs a little bit more purple over on the left." And his remark in his book was, "It's not a painting, it's a sunset." But his example was, feel the beauty. Don't analyze it. Don't try to change it. Don't think about it. Can you be there in the experience? Can you feel it? So find something that you can feel. Find a picture of a loved one who may not be with you, or find a loved one, which is even better, to be with you. and just look at them, or look at the picture, and then observe what you're feeling. Just feel it. Just feel it. Can you feel the joy? Can you feel the love? Don't think about it. Don't think about what they mean to you. Don't think about what they're wearing. Don't think about where the picture was taking and what you were doing when you would just feel the love. Just feel that, the essence of that person. And once we can connect with our feeling nature, once we can be there, once we can feel without thinking, then the next step is try to feel thoughts. Don't engage the thoughts. Don't think about the thoughts. Don't spend a lot of time dwelling on them. One of Buddha's teachings was simply, when a thought arises, note it. Oh, a thought. That's it. No further. No, where did it come from? Where did it go? Oh, a thought. So can we feel the thought? When the thought comes up, can we just feel that a thought is occurring? Just feel it. And as we do that, then we start to ask, can I feel where I am? Can I feel where I am? In that place of feeling, what we come to experience is that we are not the thoughts. Thoughts may not even be our thoughts. But we are the one who is feeling. Now what you can do, an interesting exercise, is explore. Where am I? With feeling, explore. Where am I? Are you in the brain? You know, some cultures believe that the belly is the root of all thought. In our society, we point to our head and we say, I was just thinking. In other societies, they point to the belly button and say, I was just thinking. Where am I? Am I somewhere in this body? Can you do a mental scan? Can you turn within, imagine what it looks like looking inside your body, and do a mental scan from your heads to your toes? Some cultures taught the adherents to move their consciousness entirely to the big toe. Just to show them that you're not in your head, you're not in your belly. Where are you? Where am I? In this practice of feeling, right, just feel. Then let the thoughts be feelings. And then as you're feeling, try to feel where you are. What tends to happen is the unreal dissolves. The unreal dissolves. And we can get a glimpse of the real. We can get a glimpse of the jewel that's at the bottom of the pond that we've been splashing around looking for. Now Osho does warn us that there's a trick that the mind plays on us. We start to do this and suddenly we say, oh, I'm empty, but I don't see anything yet. Where is this thing I'm supposed to see because I'm empty? And he says, you're not empty. The fact that you're thinking you're empty proves that you're not empty. So, and again, the mind is playing a trick on us to keep us engaged in our thoughts. So what we want to do is just, oh, a thought. There goes a thought. I feel the thought. Now I need to feel where I am. All right, so that's practice number one. And you can do that anywhere. You say you can do it, if you have nothing but your memory, you can do that. You can do it with a photograph. You can do it with your beloved. You can do it with a flower. You can do it with anything. And then the second technique is to just try and be at the beginning of a thought or a desire. And the teaching is that before the desire, before the thought. I am, the I being the divine, the I being the authentic me, the I. So we typically get caught up in our thoughts, and we typically get caught up in our desires. I'm hungry, I need to go eat. I'm thirsty, I need to go drink. I want to go to the movies, I wonder what's playing. All these different desires. And of course, once we are engaged, and we are no longer there. There's something else going on, but we're like the person in the dream who doesn't know that they're there, doesn't know that they're just an actor in a dream. So what we want to try to do is if we sit in meditation and let ourselves get quiet, then as something starts to come up, we just want to feel it at the beginning. Now I know we can't do this one at will, but if you have the opportunity to do it, if you feel a sneeze coming on, just be with the feeling as it feels at the very beginning. And the reason a sneeze is important is a sneeze is pretty much an uncontrollable act, you know. You try all day. You ever see the cartoons, they put the finger under your nose and try to do all these things that are going to get you to stop sneezing. But it's sort of an involuntary thing, you know. Once it's upon us, it's upon us. But at the very beginning, if we can catch it just at the very beginning and go into the feeling of what it feels like at the beginning, the desire goes away. So what we want to do with the second technique is we want to become aware if a thought is arising, or particularly if a desire is arising. To just stop right there and just notice how it feels. Just observe how it feels. Just be with it as it feels. You don't have to get up and go satisfied. You don't have to get up and go eat or drink or whatever it happens to be. But just feel it at the beginning before you get engaged with it. And it is in that moment then that they're called gaps. So these are gaps. These are kind of like breaks in our ordinary consciousness, in our ordinary thought process. You know? So this is why breath meditation is good. You know, we breathe all the time. We breathe all day long. We never think about it. But if we become aware of it, we can realize that there's a gap. There's a point where the breath is no longer coming out and going out, and it has not yet turned to come in. There's a gap. And then at the other end of the cycle, there's a gap where the breath can no longer come in, but it's not yet started to go out. And there's a gap. And if we are mindful of those gaps, if we are mindful of that break, we can start to get a glimpse of the nothingness, a glimpse of the emptiness, which is allness, which is fullness. So the idea that we want to work with today is that our spiritual growth is a matter of allowing our contact with the divine in these gaps, allowing our contact with the divine to be the light that dissolves the nothingness, that dissolves the illusion, that dissolves all the concepts which are probably wrong. See, we don't want to experience our concept of God. We want to experience God, the real thing. We don't want to experience God's reflection in the mirror. We want to experience God. One way to do that is to let all that is unreal dissolve into the nothingness from which it came. And then experience the light and the love and the truth and the beauty that is there. And if we are trying to feel where we are, we are one with it. The sense of the little I, the sense of the self with the little s is gone. That was only an opinion anyway. And we didn't give up anything real by letting it go. Instead, we stepped into the experience of allness, the experience of fullness, the experience of everything. So I invite you this day and this week, please take time. Please take time to simply be, to simply feel, to just let the chatter go and let the beauty that is already there to shine through. And so it is.